All right. So I'm going to get into the review of episode 1 of The Last of Us now. It's an HBO series. The showrunners are Neil Druckmann, who wrote the game, the PlayStation exclusive game from Naughty Dog, came out in 2013. So Neil Druckmann and Craig Mazin are the writers, directors of this series. Episode 1 covered the prologue from the game and the introduction, the first kind of chapters of it, and where we're going from Joel's introduction to Ellie. I'm going to get into some spoilers on here, but I'm going to make it a point not to spoil anything that hasn't happened in the show yet, that's happened in the games. I want you to be able to listen to this and experience those moments for the first time in the show, or if the show made you want to go pick up the game and play through that, experience them for the first time in that. So, that being said, let's dive into it. The first major change from the game to the show is that the show opens in 1968 with two scientists on a TV panel discussing viruses, pandemics, and everything like that, which I'm kind of torn on the virus pandemic adjustment. It hits a little bit closer to home now after COVID and dealing with the effects and aftermath of that. And so you see so many TV shows that kind of almost seems like they shoehorn it in. It fits with what they're talking about, and on that scale, kind of building the dread that we are going to experience at the core of this story. And we are getting the two scientists talking about, the one talks about viral infections, pandemics, how they can spread so quickly, be so dangerous and deadly. The other one talks about the importance and how he thinks the big major fear and danger potentially are fungi, and that the fungi can grow and take over a body and alter how your mind thinks and performs. Like LSD comes from fungi. And he said that's the true danger that we have to face, because that once that takes over, there's nothing we can do to combat it. There's nothing you can do to prevent it. There's nothing you can do to cure it. It takes over, and that's when humanity loses. And this is where we get kind of the global warming angle, because he says the reason fungi aren't dangerous to humans, the cordyceps or anything like that, at the time, 1968, they can't live above an internal temperature of 94 degrees. Humans obviously above that. And he said they have no reason to evolve. The fungi has no reason to evolve or adapt. But if the Earth's core temperature were to change a few degrees, then they would have a reason to evolve. And that kind of sets the stage for the dread and how dangerous this infection can be. We then jump to 2003. We are introduced to Sarah, played by Nico Parker, who absolutely, in my opinion, stole the show. She is in this episode for 30 minutes in this series, and she helps you build such a connection and care about the character of Sarah. In my opinion, even more than the game did, because we spend more time with her, see more of her personality, and I absolutely loved that. It also, this is the next big kind of shift in the show and the game. The show, they shift the timetable earlier by 10 years. The show takes place 2003 is when it starts, and then the 20-year jump is 2023. So it sets it in today, whereas the game is 2013, the year the game was released, and 2033. So in this is the prologue of the game that's playing out, that we're seeing. So the prologue of the game is 16 minutes long. That's including the gameplay, slow walking, which big criticism about the games, the movement is slow as shit. So sometimes it feels like it's dragging. Like even when you're sprinting, slow as shit. So fair warning for that if you're going to dive into the games. Also play it on the lowest difficulty. It is a difficult game. It is a stealth-based game. Enjoy the story. This is a story-driven game, a story. The narrative is what's key and so special about this. The gameplay is still fun, and it's still a fun-to-play game, but the story is what really helped it grow to the popularity it has and connect to that many people. And I think that's why this, in my opinion, based off the first episode. We'll see how it finishes out and nails it the rest of the series. But this is the best video game adaptation that we have gotten. And the video game itself is one that sets it up really well for that if it's done right and with the right people, because it is a narrative-driven, story-driven game. And so when you get producers and writers that care about that story, which, hey, we have the games writer doing this too, so obviously very connected and wanting to do justice by the story of the game, they can portray this really well, especially with the budget they're going to get from HBO and the ability to pretty much do whatever they want with it. And Craig Mazin did Chernobyl, which I have not watched yet. Hand up. I have heard it is fantastic and it's on my list. So every faith in them in adapting this. We have going through then, so what I was saying, the prologue of the game, 16 minutes long. The time we spend in 2003 with Sarah and the other characters there in the series, it takes up the first 30 minutes of the episode. So we're in for a long haul there. We get to build that connection to the characters and kind of see some of their motivations. You see Joel's motivations as a father. Like I said, we're doing full spoilers in here. At the end of the prologue, Joel and Sarah are trying to escape Austin. It starts out in Texas. They're trying to escape and they're stopped by soldiers, and he gets ordered to shoot them. They can't risk the infection getting out. Joel gets grazed. His watch that Sarah just gave him for his birthday, because it starts on his birthday, gets broken, and Sarah is shot and died. We get a really heartbreaking scene of Sarah dying in Joel's arms, and Nico Parker and Pedro Pascal absolutely nail that in the game. After the episode on HBO, they had a little bit behind the scenes and talking. Nico Parker said she didn't want to rehearse that scene as much because she wanted the emotion and the connection to just play out as they were filming it as much. And you can tell she, like I said, to me, she was the standout and stole the show in this episode. All the performances did really. I was really impressed with the casting on this. They absolutely nailed it. Pedro Pascal embodies Joe so well. And then when we get introduced to Bella Ramsey, they absolutely crushed the portrayal of Ellie. It may not be exactly like the games, but that spirit of the characters is there in all these performances, these roles. So, prologue, awesome. We jump 20 years ahead to 2023. We are introduced to the QZ, the quarantine zone. We see Fedra soldiers. The current timeline opens with a young kid, looks under 10, going into the QZ. Fedra workers kind of not interrogating, because it's more just asking questions. They're asking calmly, asking how old they are, everything like that. End up doing a test, find out the kid's infected. The Fedra soldier is still being very calm, saying, hey, we're going to give you some medicine, want to help you, then we can do your favorite meal. They inject the kid. Then it jumps to a bunch of workers throwing bodies into a burn pit and burning the infected. And that is where we are introduced to present day Joel. And he is there, and his first thing is throwing that kid into the fire. So the last two times we see back-to-back things of Joel are his daughter dying in his arms and then throwing an infected kid that is, it's not completely said they're dead, could just be subdued, but burning them to kill them or destroy the infection. And so that is our introduction to the Boston QZ. Started out in Austin, now we're in Boston. And we get introduced to Joel as a smuggler. He is talking to a Fedra soldier and selling him hydros and for rations, and talking to him. They're talking about a plan to get a car battery, or to get a vehicle, from the soldier, and looping some other people in, and that's what Joel needs them for. And they're negotiating prices, rations, everything like that. And the Fedra soldier tells him to stay off the streets. People are jumpy because of the Fireflies. Fireflies are the rebellion group that's going against Fedra, against the oppression, referred to as a terrorist organization. And so that's our first reference of them. He says they've been active, they've shot people, they've been blowing things up, they're on the streets. We then get introduced to Tess, who is Joel's smuggling partner. We don't know that this time. We later get to pair those two together. She's meeting with Robert, who found out he sold the battery, the car battery they were looking for, to someone else. And she ends up getting taken into federal custody after a bomb goes off and she is on the street in between a Fedra and Firefly gun battle. We are then introduced to Veronica, played by Bella Ramsey. She is chained up in a room. There's not really an explanation. She's being asked a set of kind of cognitive tests. Count down, give your name, hold your hand out. Countdown from 1 to 10. We see kind of just the fire in her, the attitude, the fight towards these people, telling them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, fuck you, is her counting to 10, calling her motherfuckers, going off. You see this anger in her for such a young kid. She's supposed to be, I think, 14 in the series, they said. And then we jump around. We get some more with Joel and Tess, establishing those characters. We see Joel go to a radio operator. We find out he's trying to get in contact with his brother Tommy, who we were introduced to in a prologue. See that he hasn't heard from him in 3 weeks. He's trying to get information from the radio operator, the tower you get information, where's it at? And he tells him it's the Cody Tower in Wyoming, clear across the country because they're in Boston. Joel tells him to show him where it's at. And that's where he's going. That's where he's heading. That's what they're trying to get the car and the battery for, him and Tess, to go track down Tommy. We find out Tess and Joel are a couple, or at least they're sleeping in the same bed together. And you can see that Joel's still kind of haunted by all the things he's seen, he's done through. He's a very kind of life's beat him down, rough around the edges character, which is perfect from the game standpoint as well. So they go to track down Robert, get this battery back, the car battery, and they go through tunnels and they come across an infected person that has grown into the wall with, not toadstools, but kind of the fungus, a mushroom-looking growth around them. They can see from the infection. And one of the other big changes from the games to the show, a big part of the games is anytime they're around the fungus, the infection, indoors, they have to put on gas masks to protect from the spores that are infecting everyone. It seems as though in the show, it's not spores that are infecting people, it's the tendrils from the people who are infected, which I don't know how people originally got infected, if there was one thing with spores that hasn't been revealed yet. But in the prologue, when we see the neighbor, Miss Zadler, that's attacking everyone, she has like fungus tendrils growing out of her mouth that are in the body that she is eating. And it seems to be that that's what are infecting people. Those tendrils, when infected, bite someone, is what infects and turns someone. And so I think that's just probably a production thing. You don't need to worry about audio and miking and constantly putting gas masks on your stars as they're going through. But I'm not sure. That hasn't been addressed yet. That was just kind of my feeling. They go to get the battery, and they come across Robert's dead. There's a bunch of dead people in the building they come to, and they come in contact with Marlene, who in the previous scene we established was the leader of the Fireflies. She is talking to Veronica, and tells her that she knows her name is Ellie. The reason she knows that, she is the one who dropped her off as a baby to the Fedra military school, which is essentially an orphanage for children with no parents. That Marlene was the one who dropped her off there. That's how she knows who she is, and that's why she's kind of trying to take care of her, look out for her. Anyways, jump back now. Marlene encounters Joel and Tess, and Ellie kind of tries to attack Joel because he has a gun pulled on Marlene, and she tries to kind of ambush him from a doorway. He easily counters it, throws her into a wall, holds her at gunpoint. Marlene then negotiates. She's been shot. She's wounded. She negotiates with Tess and Joel for them to smuggle Ellie out of the QZ to a state building to meet other Fireflies, and then they will get a car, battery, weapons, fuel, so that they can go get Tommy, which Joel reveals that the Fireflies are the one that kind of turned Tommy on him, that it's their fault that he's gone. So I'm sure we'll learn more about that as the series goes on. And so we go back. Joel and Ellie are holed up in his apartment while Tess goes to check out the way, and we get some scenes and some dialogue almost straight from the game, kind of just establishing those characters' emotions, their kind of rapport back and forth, Joel kind of being begrudging to everything, Ellie being inquisitive and just trying to figure out things, which is displayed by she finds a Billboard top hits book and finds a code inside it for Bill and Frank, which game players will know who they are, and it sounds like we're going to get to see them as the series goes on, based on the season preview. And 60s hits means there's nothing new. 70s hits means they have new stock available for Joel, and 80s just has a red X to it. Ellie finds out by tricking Joel after he was asleep, saying a certain song played, that 80s means there is trouble. So then Tess shows up back to escort everyone out there, and Tess, Joel, Ellie go outside of the QZ. We kind of see the naivety of Ellie. She stands up outside. It's just, wow, I can't believe I'm outside, right as a federal light almost shines on them. Just still kind of highlighting, oh, this is still a kid that we're dealing with, that we're looking at. She still doesn't know everything that's going on, even though we've seen all that tough exterior and how she's kind of got that fire in her and kind of hardened. They then stumble across the Fedra soldier that Joel sold Hydros to. He says he warned him not to go out. Seems like he's kind of taking almost like a blackmailing them stance, saying it's punishable by death. He wants everything for free now. He wants some of their take. But he says he's still going to scan them, go by the protocol to see if they're infected. Scans Tess, scans Joel. When he scans Ellie, she stabs him in the leg with a knife that she's carrying. And then Joel then stands in front of Ellie to protect her as the soldier pulls his gun on her and tells Joel to stand back. You see, he flashes back to the time with Sarah, and his kind of paternal instinct kicks in, and that rage to protect, and he beats the soldier to death. Ellie almost gets like a bloodlust, a feral look on his face as this goes in. And that the directors kind of said and showrunners in that after episode feature that you kind of see that kind of almost bloodlust and the difference between Ellie kind of being excited about someone protecting her and that kind of brutality. Whereas when Joel killed the neighbor to protect Sarah in the prologue, she's scared and almost taken aback. So we see that these two might be kind of a dangerous pair with Joel and Ellie. And so as the episode ends, Tess, Joel, and Ellie escape further into the city outside of the QZ. And the song Never Let Me Down Again by Depeche Mode, which I may be mispronouncing that because I've never listened to them, is playing on Joel's radio in his apartment. The shot zooms in there. And so that's from Bill and Frank, and that song was released in 1987. So a little bit of foretelling for where the series is going to go, what we've got going on. And that sums up episode 1. That's the close of that. I thought it was a super strong first episode, maybe the strongest first episode of a series that I have seen ever. And I don't think that's because I'm biased towards the game, because while I really enjoyed the game, it wasn't like one of my favorites. I played through it. Honestly, I kind of did a speed run through it to get to the second one because I was more excited for the second game. And then I'm currently in the middle of doing a replay right now. I'm about halfway through, I think, because I wanted to play it through and get things kind of fresh in my mind to compare it to the series. So that wraps up episode 1. I'm really excited. I thought it was perfectly cast. I'm really excited to see where the series goes. And the intro using the same music from the game players got to be like, oh, that really hits home with them. And those details are things that game players are really going to appreciate. So Highly recommend it. Episode 1 is out now, HBO Max. I will be doing mini reviews, typically shorter than this, on the future episodes as we go. So that concludes this wrap up. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to comment below. I want your thoughts on if you played the game versus if you didn't play the game, what you thought of this premiere episode, and if you're excited, going to keep tuning in, and what you hope to see from the show going forward. Let's try to keep it spoiler free for those who haven't played the game in the comments below. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, share. Hope you keep coming back. The other ones will be a little shorter, a little more focused.